So usually the meritocracy there is the best hunter, right? And that will always be men. I'm always getting asked, or I'm seeing articles about women hunting, and I know I say it on the podcast, but I just want to reiterate: the women are not hunting. The animals can smell our hormones. Like we are not. Yes, it's not that we can't. It's that it's not wise.
Welcome back to another episode of the Peak Performance Life podcast. Today, I am extremely excited to have back on a guest that we previously had on, and it was one of the most exciting, fun episodes that we have recorded here. And when I was thinking about, hey, who's a guest who we haven't had on in at least a year and a half or so, or longer, that I want to bring back, Mary Ruddick was the first person that came to my mind. For those who didn't hear the first episode that we recorded with her about a year and a half ago, Mary literally travels the world and spends time with like indigenous cultures and tribes all over the world who are still kind of living in a kind of the ancestral living type of lifestyle, just kind of living off the land and that kind of a thing. And it's just incredible to hear the stories. She's also obviously works with many people who have different rare conditions and things like that they're not able to heal. She helps them through these ancestral teachings and learnings that she's learned throughout her life. She helps people heal. So she also is a great healer who works with many people as well. But her stories are just so exciting. So Mary, thank you for coming back. I can't wait to hear. I've been emailing you and I get an auto response back. Mary's out in the wild and no one can get a hold of her. And we'd love to hear what you've been up to.
Oh, thank you so much. I've been up to so much. I just love this adventure of life. And like the saying behind your head there, always be learning. I have an insatiable curiosity, which takes me on all sorts of paths and travels. So I wouldn't even know where to start. But most recently, Montreal for a meat stock.
Okay. Montreal is the most recent place you've gone?
Yes, not so tribal, but oh, it was beautiful. Have you been?
Only when I was like a teenager or in college or something. Not recently.
I was taken with it. I went with the whole Meat Stock crew, their big conference, and but it was a very like low key boutique, relaxing, fun. It was great. It was really great. And I'm headed to Norway next to go look at some microbes and see if there's a good FMT center for people to use. So.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I know you're working on some new research projects. And then have you been out, with any tribes or out? Yeah. What's some of the recent stories maybe from the last year or two?
I have. I've seen way less than I usually do because I have been in massive moves and writing a lot. I've been writing a lot, but I've still been seeing a lot and going to a lot of places. The last place was with the Mayans again. I love my Mayans. I love my Mayans. Yeah. And they've been...
Tell us a little bit about the Mayans. Yeah. For those, I mean, we all heard the old mystical stories, but we don't know a whole lot about how they still live today.
Do you know... So there's many Mayans that don't speak Spanish, that live very traditionally, and I never would have expected that. But what I love from the Mayan culture is something that really took me years of going to all these different cultures around the globe to realize, and that is that in our health world, in our way to kind of biohack our way back out of desperation and just climb ourselves out of, Dante's rings and get into health, we get so serious. We get so serious and everything becomes so black and white and so drab and so effortful, right? Very masculine, actually, right? Just like square boxes that have to be done. And while discipline is absolutely necessary, I wouldn't have healed without discipline, and I wouldn't work with someone if they weren't disciplined. When we start to lose our energy, we lose the energy for the fun things first. The fun things go first because they're not essential. We don't see them as essential. And the more of these cultures that I go to, the more I'm picking up that fun is their frequency. Fun is their frequency. They are constantly having joy and doing things out of joy and in joy and with joy with each other, whether it's dancing or hunting or singing, When I was with the Mayans this last time, there was about 8 of the men, and it was like if you saw 8 noble men, but interacting with each other the way that we haven't done since we were children, because they were curious. They would pick up an instrument and start playing, and then they would switch instruments, and then one would sing, and then another would sing. And we don't tend to do that kind of thing. When do guys get together in our society, and just laugh and create their own fun, and end with deep prayer and gratitude. The night in the beginning and at the end was centered in prayer and gratitude and really deep prayer. So you have all this eye contact and touch, and I've talked about the need for that, but I think what we're missing is the motivation behind everything, right? Yeah.
This is really fascinating that you bring this up, and it's so true. And we get so serious about life, and we have responsibilities and this and that, and we forget to have fun. And it reminds me of that old story of the guy has a fishing boat, and some businessman comes and says, "Hey, we could build more fishing boats and have a bigger business." And then he's like, "And then what? Then one day you can retire and you can just fish on your boat all day," which he's already doing right now, right? So
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly it. Because being back in the States more this year, I've been able to buy all these biohacking devices that have come out and test them out and see what's doing what's increasing HRV, what's increasing deep sleep, all those kinds of things. And it got me so curious as to, well, now that we have these brainwave devices that you can get for home, you can see what's working for other things. And I started to look into some of the more traditional things, like dance would be a perfect example, right? I work with a lot of people riddled with infections and on very strict medical diets that can barely move. And a lot of that is in their lymph. But what they don't get is eye-to-eye contact, they don't get touch, and they don't get the lymph moved. And dance does all of those. Plus the sound, the music, like the different kinds of music. I am obsessed with tango, but it doesn't matter what you like. Each different kind of dance, the music channels different brainwaves, and it actually triggers specific brainwaves. So it can be extremely medicinal, and it's so much more fun than going to a place and getting a spa massage that's so expensive, and so serious.
Or walking on a treadmill for a half hour or something, right? Or an hour. Go to a dance class instead. Yeah.
Yes.
And this also sounds, I don't know. Whenever I think of like a tribe out in the wilderness, I think about them dancing, like they're dancing around a fire or something, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's rare for me. I can't think of a time where there hasn't been dancing each day.
Wow.
Yes. Compare
Incredible.
that to us.
Yes. Yeah. Incredible. One of the things that stood out to me from the last time we recorded the episode is when I was asking you about, do these tribes, the people who are living off of the land and ancestral living, do they get diseases or things at the same rate that you do? And you nonchalantly replied, "I don't see them get any diseases." No. And that really stood out to me as something that wow, I'll kind of never forget that line. Are you still seeing, is that kind of still a common theme? And for people who maybe didn't listen to that first episode, what do you think are some of the reasons why they get less diseases?
Oh, honestly, quite simply, if we look at animals in nature that aren't fed by humans or around human contact, they don't get diseases either. When we are naturally born, when we're in communities, so we're producing the right hormones, when we haven't damaged our bodies in lots of ways and we have the normal social structures, we simply don't get sick. We just simply don't. Now, there's a way to provoke it. So if I go to a place where they've had t-shirts donated or food donated, small things will come in, but nothing that we would think of, none of the things that we see. And of course, throughout history, in cities like Alexandria and Cairo and Athens, there would be certain kinds of illnesses because microbes do matter, right? I'm seeing this real push towards all microbes are friendly in nature, which is insane, because they're not. They're not. You have to have perfect health, and perfect health means perfect microbiome, a relaxed lifestyle, living within your gender hormones, your circadian hormones, all of those kinds of things, to not be susceptible to these things. And there's not too many of those people today. So we're dealing with second, third generation C-section folks, and for those, very different rules apply. So if you don't sterilize your raw milk equipment or you don't wash your hands between something, it's devastating to the human biome. So it's a very different situation. They don't have the cavities, they don't have eye issues, they don't get infections, they don't have issues with birth. When I ask them these questions, they look at me like I'm crazy. You know?
Wow. Wow,
Yes.
it's incredible. Yeah, and you mentioned last time you were a big believer in the healing nature of sunlight
Yes.
and that, being outside all day, and the fact that in our traditional society most people are not getting sun, or they're afraid of the sun, or I see people completely covering themselves up, or they won't leave the house without sunblock or anything like that. And I don't think they're using much sunblock in these tribes.
No, no, none. Definitely none. And yes, no, that doesn't exist. The funny thing is, there's been really interesting studies done on what stresses a human. So if we take out all of the psychological babble that we've had in our heads for the last 150 years, and we look purely at biochemistry as to what actually creates a stressed state in a human. So this isn't philosophical here. It's hard for us to take those blinders off, right? Because we've been in this culture. But the things are very often so different than what we might think. It's less so about fighting with someone or going through something hard. It's much more so about being out of sunlight. So being inside all day. That's actually one of the biggest ones. Being inside all day. It really is, actually. It equates in many studies to the same as being a prisoner, or not a prisoner at war, a civilian at war. Because why else would the body be hiding from sunlight?
Yeah.
Right, so the body makes these assumptions and gets very stressed. So there's a lot of things that are just born into these traditional cultures where they do spend a lot of time outside, and the things that they're touching are soil and earth. Now, they also have the immune system for it. I was at a farm in the UK where they had all these pathogens at the farm, and they were walking barefoot, and so you're gonna pick up a lot of things there. You do have to be healthy and mindful, and really use tribal methods if you're going to be a homesteader, please, because things like milk and meat do have to be respected to be superfoods. But yeah, as long as those things are followed, our natural state, I'm convinced from all I've seen, is perfect health. And if I can emphasize anything, that the most freeing part of that is the internal world that I see so few people here experience. And that is that true calm presence.
Yes. Yeah. I love to hear people talk about this as well, because so many episodes we talk about like, oh, here's what to eat or not, what not to eat. And I do want to ask you about that at some point as well. But the internal state, the just being great, like you said, the grateful practice. So tell us about, mentioned the Mayans have a gratefulness practice. Like I go out every morning, I try to get sunlight and do gratefulness. And I just find on the days when I miss that, it's a different day for me sometimes, or I don't feel as good. And so having this practice, I'm sure, is incredible. Can you tell us a little bit about what it is?
Yes, well, it's born into their culture. So it's constant, actually. It's anytime that anyone is together, which is most of the time. And they'll rattle off gratitudes and just rampages of appreciation like you've never heard before. It is beautiful. It is poetry, and it's just their norm. It's like five guys hanging out. Yeah, it's incredible. It's really incredible. So, in the Mayan culture, a lot has to do with synchronicities. And so you're a bit more present because you're paying attention to the little things, the birds that come by, and all these kinds of things. And a lot of their religion is very heart-based. It's very lovely and kind. And so you just feel like you're being enveloped in kindness when you're there, and that you're truly seen. And I have to agree with you. I think one of my favorite reasons for loving my Mayan friends so much is that they are in that state that you're getting in the morning, and they're there most of the time. And I too have found the same thing. I took a year off from not doing that in the morning. Night and day difference. Night and day difference. It is not worth it to me. Yes, it is not worth it to me.
Yeah, and when you combine morning sunlight with gratefulness and just saying, today's, expecting it to be a great day, appreciating everything, showing that gratefulness. It's really incredible. It's one of the most important things for your health. In fact, I don't know, this is just obviously, I don't know anything scientific about this, but a lot of times you can see the people who are constantly getting sick or are really sick, a lot of times they're not happy. They have anger. They're getting frustrated over every little thing. Like you said before, they take things so seriously. Like, have you seen that as well?
Completely. Yes, because we are part of nature and we're social creatures. So many of us are living as if we're not social creatures. We're living indoors. And when we go outside in the morning, when you go out for your gratitude practice in your sunlight, if there are trees around you, then the sunlight is going to come through those tree leaves and you'll produce gamma waves, which gives you that sense of awe. And when we get more of those waves, things aren't as stressful. We can handle things with that kind of like twinkle in our eye, right? And we're not so rigid. So even if we need to have discipline for something, it's more like, let's make a plan instead of the harsh and the judgment and, the depravity. Yes.
Yes, exactly. You mentioned you're doing a lot of writing and kind of research papers. What's some of the stuff you're working on?
Yeah, well, I've had 3 studies done on my dysautonomia program, and I've been working on the birth microbiome for years and made some what feels like some truly massive discoveries there that really changed the way I've seen most things, tied in my whole field of work. And so I've been getting that into, I've basically been writing an enormous amount because it's a very complicated subject. It's not as simple as it once was when it was like, oh, just eat this. It's actually become very, very complicated, and no one wants complicated. So the way to make something very complicated simple is to work at it often. So I've been writing a lot to try to get it more digestible and usable. But I've been working a lot on that, and that's been very fun and exciting, actually. I love writing, and so it's been such a fun exploration. I made a very ridiculous microbial play that will probably never see the light of day. And we have fun here.
That's great. That's great. What are okay, so let's talk about different parts of the world. Africa. What's some of the most memorable, what's one of the most memorable tribes or experiences you've had in Africa, would you say?
Well, there's so many, but there's so many, and they're also different. Africa is so big. If we're going tribal, I love the Chaga. I love the Chaga tribe. They're so fun, Okay. I think that's fun is the frequency of healing, and they're so fun. Most of what they do is a celebration. They're very warm with their children. They have a party every Sunday that the whole village attends. It looks like a Hobbitville with these little rivers that go through to each individual house. It's just beautiful. And they have a more varied diet than most of the tribes. So, you get to have coffee with them. Coffee is a traditional food, which is awesome. It's just so fun. Yes.
Yeah. So let's get into that a little bit. So what are they eating? I know last time we spoke, you kind of mentioned that obviously people are eating whatever based on their location and what resources and what foods are kind of available to them oftentimes. So what are you seeing with this tribe, for example? What are they typically eating?
So they have the kind of diet that I would usually give to someone once they get to remission, or as they're close to remission, or a child who isn't ready to do a very, very strict diet, and we want to see if a bit of headway will make enough change in their health, which it often does. So they don't really have lectins, but they do eat plants. So they have some root vegetables, and they eat very seasonally. So first and foremost, though, their most important food is meat and dairy and fish. So they even have their animals come into the house at night. That's how important they are. They have stalls in the house. It's really interesting. So they have cows, they have goats, they have all sorts of different animals. And then they also fish, and having a banana soup is very common there, like it is in the Amazon as well. So like the green plantain would be the starch, and then your fish or your meat, your broth, some veggies. So they tend to have the kind of root vegetables, the kind of more starch things like taro, sweet potato, cassava, green plantain, the things that you see around the equator belt, really. And because they're higher up on Kilimanjaro, they can grow quite a bit more plants than really any of the other tribes right around there that are so close. So they even have things like millet and sorghum. But again, they don't have it year round. They have it short, and they do the stone grinding and all of that. So they do it properly. So they have a diet for where we would need a perfect microbiome, I would say, to be very healthy on. But that is natural for humans to be able to be healthy on that diet. It's just that the more damage we've done to the microbiome, the more we've had to adjust. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So what do you think are, maybe this is kind of an obvious question, but because and it's interesting because cassava, some people would say, oh, maybe people shouldn't be eating cassava. I've heard mixed kind of reviews on that one. I'm curious, but in this case, obviously they're doing it because they have the microbiome. So you kind of made the point, maybe it's because we have damaged microbiomes from everything else. Is
Unquestionably. Yeah, I mean, for one thing, so yes, plants have toxins, right? And some plants are just unavoidable, the toxins, like the solanines. There's a very long process you could go through. It takes months with potatoes, and then you dip the potato in a soil and a clay every time you eat. There's a way to get to neutralize the solanines, but it is laborious, and no one's doing it outside of Peru. But the plants they're eating aren't high toxin plants, really. So millet and sorghum are the two traditional grains that didn't have the lectins and most of and so the other plant toxins that they had were easy to neutralize. And again, it's a small portion of the diet that's eaten for 2 months a year. So it's not the way that people tend to eat now, where they eat the same thing every single day over and over and obsess. They're like, if this food is good, it's good all the time, right? That's the mistake that we make. And yes, and tapioca, cassava, yes, it has some toxins in it, but our microbiome should be able to remove those toxins. A lot of what's happened is that we've lost the very specific microbes to remove those. And in pulling some of those foods out, we stop feeding some of the birth microbes. So there's a great cost that we can play if we don't know what we're doing, and no one has known what we're doing with the microbiome. So as we've gotten more devastation and people have had to be more careful with their diets, more strict with their diets, pull more things out, you start to go more towards like a carnivore, right? Because that's something that doesn't have toxins. Yes, and it rebuilds human cells and things like that. But what's been missing, and what I've been working on so hard, is the next step. Because while 10 years ago and when I healed, the microbiome, if you starved things out, you tended to get better, right? It's like at a really high success rate. And that success rate has been going down and down and down the more damage we've had with microbiomes. So people can get themselves much better doing these medical diets, but maybe not to the freedom that I've gotten. And I've been finding ways to get people to that freedom anyway. So that's what I've been working on this year is what are we missing? How do we get it back in? Can we avoid starving it out on some of these medical diets so that we can use the diets to get over the illness without starving out some of the birth microbes? And all of that is terribly complicated. So don't expect anything anytime soon.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because the carnivore is like the ultimate elimination diet, because you're eliminating any of these things. Like, again, there's so many so-called healthy foods that many people, obviously you go to California, probably 70% of the people there are going to tell you that beans are healthy, right? That a lot of the lectins and things like that. So what are some of these? I know you mentioned last time potatoes you thought were really not a good food.
I know, I get the worst flack for that, but I think they're the worst because people think that they're so innocuous and safe and plain, and it's a root vegetable, and so many societies associate it with being a traditional food when it has not been in those societies. Outside of like Peru, it was not a traditional food around the world. So the toxin neutralization is not known. It's complicated, and it's not a water-soluble toxin, so it's not in and out. So people eating potatoes once every 3 months have a constant solanine and glycoalkaloid toxic load, right? Yeah. So often what I hear people say when I tell them some of the foods that the tribes eat, they're like, oh, sorghum? But it's a grain. And I'm like, yeah. And they have it for 2 months of the year, and it doesn't have the toxins. They ferment it, and and it's like this tiny amount of a thing. Their whole life is really, really healthy, and so it doesn't cause any issues because humans are meant to be resilient. But in our world, nearly everything is going against us. I mean, the inhalation of plastics alone in our households is significant. The breakdown of the family structure is massive for our hormones and our immune system and our cytokines. And so for us to be eating constant toxins, thinking that they're health foods, because we all fall for that, right? You get sick and you listen to whoever says whatever, you try anything and you load yourself with all these toxins, and then sometimes you get worse. And yes, but it's part of the journey. So it's a totally different situation. So for us to bring potatoes into what we're already dealing with, not great. It's not a great idea. I know no one wants me to say that. But
I think it's great, because I think it's these kind of ones where people think they're eating healthy, right? Like, people who are eating enormous amounts of spinach and then getting, from the oxalates in there, right? Things like that. They think it's healthy, right? I mean, spinach had the greatest marketing campaign of all time with Popeye.
Yes, it really did. Yeah, it really did. Yes, and I see a lot of people when they start to transition off the medical diets, whether it's for themselves or for their children, the potato is like the first place they go, potato and rice. And I see people gain so much weight. I don't know if you've noticed that. It's very specific medical diets, when people start to transition off, they just balloon while really eating kind of the same diet, just they add some things in, like potato. So it's not like they've gone full standard American diet or anything like that. But now their body has a way to store the toxins. So you bring those toxins in and you go, poof.
Yeah. And you mentioned last time too, most of these cultures, they're not eating a high carb diet, or maybe all of them are not eating a high carb diet like we are, right?
I haven't seen anything like what we do. So the carb-based diets that I see, I don't want to say carb-based. People are going to take that as a technical term. That's not a technical term. I mean, the communities that eat carbohydrates, more carbohydrates, it's usually about 100 grams a day. Is usually what I see. In America, we start at 300 and go on up, and that's diabetes territory. So we're very different for what we think of as normal. If we just think of like a normal breakfast, lunch, dinner, for what we've been told is healthy. So that's 300 and up, very, very different.
Yeah. And for people who are wondering, hey, I need some carbohydrates, now you just tell me potatoes are no good. What is we know bread and pasta is possibly worse than potatoes, who knows? So what are some safe carbohydrates in your opinion?
Well, it totally depends what you've got, what your health issue is. If you're healthy, you have way more bandwidth. You can basically do the traditional carbs. You just need to know the history of those carbs. So, if you're doing bread, it should be 72-hour fermented, and then you're fine. And if you're doing corn, it better be nixtamalized and gone through 5 stages. But you can buy that, and in certain countries, that's on the shelf. So there's, we call a food, but then there's like 20 varieties of it, even if it's just something that we're getting in the vegetable aisle. And so really it's anything that we've eaten traditionally and seasonally. So like even taro root or sweet potato, which may have more oxalates than some of the other things, if you eat it seasonally, you have a healthy microbiome. You're using that as a vehicle for butter, or you're fermenting that taro into the very sacred food in many cultures. It's great. So in general, you want to find the ones that work best for you. What I tend to recommend for people is to go, especially as they get healthier, and they can eat carbs again, and they can eat starches again, and they get rewarded for that, right? Because when you're healthy to a certain point, you eat that, you get healthier. It feeds the right microbes. I usually go for the ones that are going to feed the most birth microbes, because that's really what we want to do to get resilient, Birth
microbes. Explain birth microbes for people who are not familiar.
Sure. So birth microbes are the microbes that we are meant to get when we are born naturally. And if we're not born naturally, if we're born via C-section, we lack our core microbes. And these are not ones that we can get through diet or lifestyle or soil or ferment. So they're very essential. They create very essential biochemical processes in the body. They produce a lot of our vitamins. They protect us from very specific infections. So like one specific birth microbe will protect you from a lot of the microbes that you see in the hospitals. And that's kind of how humans always stayed healthy. That was certainly a large part. So now if you have a C-section, you might, by some miracle, I have seen some cases where some people get some of their birth microbes. We don't know how, because they're anaerobes, meaning they die the second they touch oxygen. So that swipe that they do for the C-section, it's not enough. But further, the birth microbes then need to be fed. So they need to be fed through nursing. Now, some of the birth microbes that you get through the vaginal birth, they don't need that. They'll start eating really glyconutrients, the glyco matrix. We have a matrix of sugar mucin in our body, non-sweet, that's immune regulating, and it feeds the birth microbes and it gives them a home. But many of them require the breast milk to bloom at the right time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of listeners right now who either were born via C-section or maybe had a C-section and their children were born via C-section. What advice would you give to those people, especially if they're not in perfect health?
Yes, I give very different advice to each person based on their situation. I have to be honest with you about that. Because the microbiome is so complex. Mm-hmm. But I will tell you that a lot of the medical diets, like the one that I did. Are you hearing a repeat?
No, I'm not.
Okay, I am. Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay. A lot of the medical diets, like the one that I did, like the 42 that I teach, they work much better on a non-C-section person. And I find that the timing, and this is what I'm really nailing down, the timing of how long to do them really changes if you're a C-section or a second generation C-section, because the risk can outweigh the benefit if we starve out those birth microbes. For someone born naturally, our birth microbes tend to go into hibernation. And so if we do a radical diet, even in our modern day and age and all the toxins and everything else, they'll come back when we come off that diet. But for someone who's never had them or just has a few, you can really risk losing those. And so the timing really changes. And what I'm currently working on now, and why it's a bit complex, is because each of these microbes has a different food. There's 200 of them. But what I'm working on is the smallest amount that we can give them so that we can get the benefits from some of these medical diets without starving out the good. And what I'm finding are much faster results, actually, for everyone. So I think this is going to be a very encouraging road forward, actually. I think it's going to be better for non-C-section, C-section, all the rest. But yeah, kind of merging the worlds, essentially.
Interesting.
Not being so black and white.
Yeah. You mentioned you have like 42 different diets that you kind of have worked with people on, depending on their specific situation. Is there like a series of tests, or how do you determine, which diet is right for which person?
Oh, you know what? I'm just good at that. If I'm honest, I'm just good at that. I try to look at, shouldn't say that, but that is it.
No, that's great. I love it.
Yeah, because I don't look at the diagnosis as much as I look at the person's history, microbial history, what they've responded to, what they've negatively responded to, because many people with the same diagnosis would have a different biochemical creation of that diagnosis. And so to get at that part that's either missing or hampered or held back is very different in each person. And I also, because I do like fun, I like to keep the diet as open as possible while getting the same results. So I would never risk someone's success with true remission, where they have full authority over their diet and able to eat everything and feel healthy. So I'll always give them what they need, what I think they would need to get there. But I won't go full like Dominican nun on them. I won't just be harsh to be harsh.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Because even now, like, we have all these histamines and hormonal disorders, right? But honestly, it was more simple just 20 years ago. It was like 3 different driven ways of histamine disorders. But now we have this mucosa collapse due to the microbiome coming apart, and that mimics the exact same thing, but your liver's working fine, you're not overproducing your hormones, you're clearing them just fine, so the old tricks don't work because it's not coming from the same place. So I listen and I take their full history, their familial history, their environmental history, and then I dig in and we try things.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. South America.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hear about a tribe or a story from South America.
Oh, great. I love South America. I love South America. Well, I mean, the Amazon is always a good place to start.
Yeah.
But I think we could also talk about, very often people want to hear about the hunter-gatherers, so we can go into that, or we can go into the Amazonian tribes. But there's a lot of traditional tribes as well that are closer to the city, that still hold their traditional ways. Many of you the listeners would probably know of them, like the Quechua, that have a very unique culture, unique clothing, unique diet. They are cool. The ladies are so cool. They wear their hats. Have you all seen? I hope everyone go look up Quechua women. They have all
How do you
these
spell it?
with a Q.
Okay.
Quechua, yeah, with a Q.
Quechua.
Yes. They have these exquisite hats. And the way that they wear the hat is a communication to the men in the city. So a very specific position of the hat is a statement that they are not happy with their husband at that time. It is fabulous. It is the most fabulous culture. It's a really fabulous culture. So, and that is not a culture that will last much longer, because a lot of the fertility crimes that have happened to so many of the tribes happened to the Quechua. But they are one of the cultures that really knew how to neutralize plant toxins very well and utilized animal things. I see, and maybe this is my false presumption, I may not have this right, but it seems like when I come home to America, people want very black and white answers, and it's like either all meat or all vegetable, and these kind of black and white. And I know that's easy to digest, and I'm literally the worst podcast host speaker for that, because I'm like the nuance. But the Quechua are a really good example of how to make your diet work for your environment. They're at extremely high elevation. I have never been to a culture, and I think you all know I've been to so many, like over 100. I haven't counted, but it's way over 100. That eats such a high consumption of organ meats. It's extremely high. And that makes sense because the organ meat brings more oxygen to the blood. So when you're in a very high elevation, eating heart every day and some of these other things is life-giving, right? It makes you feel like you're in the valley. And by its side, they also eat some of these plants that have, the way we eat them, quite a bit of toxins. But they spend all day and months of the year neutralizing those toxins to have them as a side dish. It's not a survivalist. No one's ever hungry. So yes, yeah. So the Quechua are really interesting. I really like them, and they're a lot of fun. They wear these bright colors, and they make the most fabulous soups. If you're coming... I grew up with filet, and no bone, so it's an adjustment if you grew up like me. But they do it the right way. Like, you sit down at a cafe and there's just all these heads boiling in front of you, of the goats, and the teeth are in there and everything else, and that brings in the right glycomatrix, actually, which our birth microbes really need, because when we talk about glyconutrients and the glycomatrix that the birth microbes live in and that regulate our immune system, we often think of plants because these are polysaccharides, and these are found in a lot of plants, but they're also found in all the odd parts of animals, like the connective tissue and shrimp shells and things like this. So the broths and the soups are really delicious, and they taste really good, and they do a lot of fermenting. And if you go to the Quechua region, it's really nice because some of the more remote Amazonian tribes will come to sell their medicines. And so if you go to a market, you'll see all sorts of different cultures, and they speak languages that no one else there even speaks. And you just kind of figure it out.
Wow.
You do some trade, and it's really lovely. And you get to do that without all the harrowing dangers that I go through when I go into the Amazon, because, y'all, I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it.
Yeah, it sounds like a crazy place. What are any common medicines that people would maybe be aware of? Any common herbs that are used medicinally out there?
Yeah, so there's a lot of medicine that's used from the Amazon. Now, many of the tribes that I've gone to, and the Amazon is so vast, and there are so many tribes I have not been to there, so this is certainly not speaking for even a large part of it. But many of the ones that I've been to, it's a completely different system for getting a chief. You know, you can tell a lot about your culture by how you choose your leaders and who you hold highest. And most of the tribes that I've gone to in that region, if not all, one exception, the chief is the one who's the best at the medicinal plants, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, there's a lot of medicines, and they've been very, very, very well studied. In fact, in Mexico City, it's one of my favorite places to go. There's a teaching hospital there in the city, and in the basement there's an archive, a wonderful archive of medicinal plants from the Amazon. But a lot, and they've actually done it well. I've talked about it in podcasts, so I won't bore you guys, but they've done it so well. But a lot of our pharmaceuticals are based off of many of those medicines. Even, you know, going back to the Chaga, they have the quinine from the fever tree bark, right? And that's what a lot of the antimalarials are based off of. And so, yes, a lot of these can be made into medicines. The mimosa, I think, is the most remarkable in terms of emergency medicine. And I think emergency medicine has been the thing I've been the most impressed with because, again, they're not getting sick. So,
Right.
until they start modernizing, they don't really have a need for something for a cough or a tummy bug or that kind of thing. But in fact, many of them don't do the kind of psychobiotics either. So I'll be in regions where ayahuasca grows everywhere, but they don't use it. So, or they use the other vines that are non-visual, non-state altering. So so they are. And a lot of our medicines are based off of that. But it's not surprising because for any medicine to work within a human, I think this is the coolest research that came out of the last 50 years. For it to work in a human, we have to be able to make that medicine on our own in our body. What? So not surprising that it would come from nature.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And then the hunter-gatherers that you've been to in South America. Tell us a little bit about maybe one of those tribes.
Yes. So usually the meritocracy there is the best hunter, right? And that will always be men. I'm always getting asked, or I'm seeing articles about women hunting, and I know I say it on the podcast, but I just want to reiterate: the women are not hunting. The animals can smell our hormones. We are not. Yes, it's not that we can't. It's that it's not wise. Yes, we are better staying home with our sisters and our aunts and our best friends, giggling and playing with the children. We have a hoot. If only we could get that in our society. It's amazing. But the men go out and hunt, and it's a lot of fun for them. They get the dopamine hit. And you know, some of them, because the Amazon is a bit more, certain regions of the world have been damaged more by colonization than others, and long before other regions. The Amazon is one of those because way, way, way back when the church came in, right? And that was the first wave, and that has impacts to today, even if the priests left 300 years ago. So that's why it can take me so long to find a place. Like I can really spend a month going to a place in the Amazon, and then it's already too modernized.
So we find this happy group of people living out in the wilderness, living off the land, enjoying their lives, beautiful community, and we say, "Oh my gosh, how they don't even have a lot of clothes. They don't have enough food. We must help them." And it doesn't always work out so well, it seems like, huh?
I've never seen it work out well. I've seen devastation, and I see humans taken from their highest, I think our highest potential in all areas, to our lowest. Really,
Wow.
rather rapidly. Yeah, there's not a word for sadness that describes what I see.
Interesting. What do you think it is about, just kind of like, what are they introducing that you think causes the most damage?
The idea that they don't know anything.
Ah.
Yeah. Yeah, when cultures come in and they insist, like the oncoming culture comes in and they act like a savior, and they make everything about their culture bad. If it's taken on, then now they don't trust themselves about anything. They lose every character, every virtue of character at that point, right? They become needy. They become children asking, dependents. They don't trust themselves anymore or the systems that they've used for a time millennium. Yes, it's a psyche breakdown. And it's very powerful. And because many of these places have been very, very punished, right? So especially like 400 years ago and things like that, but even now in the Sami culture, it's awful what's happening. Because some of them have been very, very punished, they won't talk to you about anything else. They will have like a speech that they have memorized that they will say if you ask them certain questions. And it's really sad to watch, honestly. So there's that, but there's also industrial poison. A lot of the Amazon was very illegally mined for minerals, so it wasn't done properly. Same with rubber. And the rubber, I guess you would call them farms, back in the 1800s enslaved a lot of the traditional people. And so the microbiome was harmed then. Basically, as soon as people are moved from their traditional food and lifestyle, things start to trickle down. Yeah.
Not to mention when a nonprofit brings food, they're usually not bringing animal meat with organs. They're usually dropping in some toxic carbohydrates or who knows what. Which again, if someone has absolutely nothing and this is the only thing you can give them so that they can survive, that's one thing. But if someone is surviving already, then it's probably not very helpful.
No, and that's just it. So I think we have this idea that surviving is very difficult because for us, if we were suddenly put somewhere, we would all be like a 2-year-old. We would have no idea what to do. But for them, I haven't been to a culture that isn't in incredible abundance. There is no lack. There is no worry of not having tomorrow. So when people bring in this food, they destabilize the human's microbiome, for one. They destabilize the environment. Very often, they're bringing in food because of political reasons. So the tribe has been moved, or their traditional diet has been made illegal. Like they're not allowed to hunt the narwhal or whatever. And so they now are not allowed to do things. So that's severe punishment. And so that's why people bring in things. But yeah, it's a complicated issue, really.
It really is.
Yes.
It really is. I'm actually myself kind of going on my own journey of like, if I want to be philanthropic, how can I do that in a way that actually is not counterproductive? And I'm reading books that show how a lot of times it's counterproductive to just kind of, again, give food to, or whatever the case may be, right? Creating a dependency rather than people living off the land and creating their own food. So anyway, that's a whole nother journey that I'm kind of partaking on and trying to figure out what is a good way to give and help. And do these people even want or need or should they have that, right?
Well, I'll tell you, the places I go don't need anything. It's when things start to become adjusted and modernized, and then they start to have health issues, or they're moved off their land, so they don't know how to get food from their land, and then everything changes. But there's a book that I highly recommend called Toxic Charity.
Yes.
Have you read that? It's so good.
Yeah, that's the one. Toxic Charity and Dead Aid. Were the two that really had an impact on me and made me say, hold up, let me take a step back here and really kind of figure out who should I be giving to, who should I not be giving to, what should I do here?
Yes, because I'm a big fan of giving and helping. I think we are meant to help each other, and we are better when we do it. But having been on the receiving end when I was disabled, receiving doesn't always feel good if you can't give back. And what I love about those books is that it talks about a way of charity to do it like a business so that you're measuring the outcome instead of just the intention. The intention rarely is successful. It's usually the opposite that happens, and people don't realize that. So to make it actually not just an intention, but follow through with a high quality outcome, totally different story. That's a wonderful thing to get involved with. Yeah.
Yes. Beautifully said. Mary, we could talk for hours. The journeys you go on are incredible. The stories you come back with are amazing. We covered a lot of important topics today, from having fun, dancing, having fun, singing like these tribes do. What an incredible thing for your health that is, getting sunlight every day, doing your gratefulness, not eating a high carb diet, eating lower carb, more animal meats and organs and things like that, all being generally better for people. So we've learned so much. I also know that you kind of work with a lot of people who may have seen traditional doctors or other people and not been healed or gotten the results they want. Where can people follow you, find you, and maybe reach out to you if they need your help?
Oh, great. I'm on the Minect app, if you're aware of that one. So anyone can ask me a question there. And then my website, maryruddick.com, goes everywhere. It goes to my socials and everything else.
Amazing. This is so much fun. I always enjoy these conversations. And I'm going to probably put a reminder on my calendar for a year from now to reach out to you again. And maybe we can hear some of the new journeys. And this is always so much fun. So thank you so much for everything you're doing, for the wisdom you're spreading in the world. I mean, even the end of this conversation that we just had, I think could be very eye-opening to people and very helpful for understanding some of these cultures and tribes that you're able to visit. So thank you so much. And I hope we can do it again sometime.
I'd love that. Let's meet back in a year.
Yes, let's do it. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, it would really mean a lot to me if you would forward this episode along to any friends, family members, anyone that you think that would get value out of it and learn something important. The mission at Peak Performance is to help people prioritize and transform their health. And so if you think someone will get value, please, please, please do forward this episode along to them. Also, if you could please rate and review and subscribe on whatever podcast player you are listening to this on, we would greatly appreciate that as well. It means a lot. And I want to tell you about a couple of new products that we just released. You can get 20% off your first order at buypeakperformance.com. That's BUY peakperformance.com. We just released a brand new grass-fed beef protein isolate. This is my favorite new protein powder because it's great for muscle building and recovering and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't give the stomach discomfort and gas that a lot of people get from different types of proteins like whey protein. Some types of plant proteins can do the same as well. It seems to be really, really easy on the stomach while still giving all the great benefits of muscle building and everything else that you want from taking in adequate protein. So check out our new beef protein isolate. We have it in unflavored, which I actually mix and blend with my morning coffee every morning. We have a vanilla and we have a chocolate. You can buy it on Amazon, but again, you also do get 20% off your first order at buypeakperformance.com, BUY peakperformance.com. We've also recently released organic mushroom coffee. We have these in Keurig compatible K-cup coffee pods. We have organic mushroom coffee with lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps, turkey tail, and chaga mushrooms blended with the high altitude organic coffee that we've been using and that we've been famous for years. So that's been a big hit, that one as well. You can get on our website or Amazon, any of our products. And of course, we're always famous for our organic green superfood powder that has almost 5,000 reviews on Amazon with a very high star rating. We're known as the best tasting USDA certified organic green superfood powder with over 25 plus organic ingredients. Again, we also have the organic red superfood powder. We still, of course, have the organic plant protein for those who do prefer the plant protein, but I'm really excited about this new beef protein isolate and all of our other products. We do have over 100 products, so just check us out if you type in Peak Performance Supplements on Amazon or if you go to buypeakperformance.com. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you again soon.